Hello, this is Mr. Huff, and we are going to be assembling a jack plate using these three parts. And just for fun, I'm going to open them up. These will all start with the letter J. We're going to have a base, a bolt, and a wedge. I'm selecting all three of those, opening them all at once. You don't have to do this. You do have to have them copied into the appropriate project folder. So here's a wedge, and a bolt, and a base plate. This will be the grounded part in our assembly. So we're going to start a new assembly. Use the standard assembly. Choose place. I'm saving the file first before I even start. It's real important in assembly to save frequently. There are a few things that you can click on by accident and crash Inventor, so I recommend saving your assembly. Make it a name that's easy to recognize. Remember to type in uppercase letters. Alright. Now we're going to place some content. One of the things I want to show you, sometimes it gets switched over to Content Center here. Be sure you're using the place command. And in this one, we're going to start with the one that starts with J, base plate. I'm going to click and then right click to place that part. And the first thing you want to do is ground this part. Right click and choose grounded. What this does is it will add a little tack here, and it will make it where this part is aligned to the view cube. If you don't do this, you can make an assembly and it looks right, but it's not aligned with the origins anymore, and when you assemble this, it looks strange. Alright, so I'm placing the bolt, and I'm going to use free rotate on this to kind of align it to where it needs to be. So you can choose the free rotate tool. This is kind of a quick and dirty way to get a part approximately placed. So somewhere about there, it just has to be kind of in the right direction. It doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, I'm going to rearrange that so I can zoom in and view the faces I want to constrain. We're going to start with a mate constraint, using the bottom of the upper portion of the bolt, this face, and then I'm going to use shift and center click to rotate this piece and click on this face. So now those two are mated together. So you can see that that bolt is that's always on the same face. The other thing I want to do is put the bolt in the slot, so I'm going to choose constrain, and I'm going to choose mate. Nope, I'm going to choose tangent. Choose tangent. We're going to choose the circular part of the bolt and the interior face of this slot, and then we click apply. And what this is going to let us do is we can move the bolt up and down in the slot, but it isn't going to go left or right. It'll only go up and down through the slot. Alright, I'm going to push that out of the way for now. And the next thing we're going to do is place the wedge. And one of the things, the orientation is incorrect here, so another way to do that is you can rotate. So I'm going to rotate this in the Y-axis. And that is the way I want it to look. So I actually placed two parts. I'm going to delete this one. You'll have to play with that rotate function a little bit to kind of get the hang of it, but once you get the hang of it, it makes it a lot faster than the free rotate to orient things as you're placing them. And I'm looking for the constraint option. It was way at the top. So I'm going to constrain these two together. What we want is we want the bottom of the wedge and the top of the base plate to be mated. So I'm going to choose the upper portion here and the lower portion here. And then click apply. Okay. So what that does is now the wedge and the base plate are connected together. So as I slide them, it's only sliding up and down that wedge. I'll show you this from the right side, it's easier to see. So as I move it, you can see it always stays together. Now, one of the things I need to do in this assembly is I'm going to flush the front of the wedge to the front of the base plate. So we're going to use a flush constraint between this face and this face. Apply. And then I make a mistake. So the flush constraint I apply, don't do it. This causes a problem in a minute. So don't apply this constraint. Alright, the next thing so now I've got that thing constrained 100%. It can't move, and that's where the problem is. Alright, so the other thing we need to do is put the bolt into the wedge. So we're going to use a mate constraint, and we're going to use the axis of the hole in the wedge and the axis of the bolt. So we're going to choose mate, and you kind of have to slide across the bolt kind of up and down until you find that red dotted line right there. That's the one you want. And then you're going to do that again with the hole in the wedge. It takes a second to find. That's the one you want right there. And then you click apply, and this is why you didn't do that second flush constraint. So if you want to remove a constraint, what you have to do, I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to go open the wedge, and you can see the constraints I put in there. The last one I put was the problem, so I delete that. Now I can constrain it. So again, find the center axis using a mate constraint, center axis of the bolt, center axis of the wedge right there, and then click apply. Alright, so now the bolt is constrained into the wedge is constrained to the top of the base. Everything, the only thing that happens is I can turn the bolt. That's the only thing that will move. Another thing I want to show you is how to inspect for interference, or to see where interference is occurring. Oh, it popped up, hey, you need to save. That's a good idea. Remember, save frequently. It's easy to crash an assembly. And then you have to start over again, and that's not fun. Okay, so we're going to inspect the interference between the bolt and the wedge. So I'm going to choose view, and right here I have visual style. You can choose realistic or shaded with edges. We normally work with shaded and edges so you can see the parts distinctly, but it looks nice to use the other two visual styles. But for this we're going to choose wireframe, and now we can see the lines that make up the part. This is what traditional CAD software normally looks like. Inventor is pretty cool. Alright, so now we're going to choose inspect and analyze interference. We're going to choose the wedge and the bolt, and then we're going to hit OK, and it pops up this little window with some details about the interference, and here you can see highlighted in red, you see an interference. This is where the bolt and the wedge come in contact with one another, and so you have like threads acting there. This is a nice tool to be able to use, and it's one of the more advanced features on Inventor. So that's that. Switch it back to your visual style by choosing view, and click on the drop down for visual style and put it on shaded with edges. Alright, so now you have an assembly of a jack plate, and you have investigated the interference.